Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your playoff first leg review. My goodness, what it had in store for us. Very unexpected across the two legs. Let's start off at Ashton Gate. Unfortunately, it's a pass out, isn't it, for Bristol City? 3-0 down. Was the Rob Dickey red card a red card? The double jeopardy rule? Absolute nonsense. It was a red card. He had his hands all over Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore, who's about to slot the ball in the back of the net or at least have some sort of goal-scoring opportunity, was denied. It was a penalty. But before that, let's go all the way back to sort of the first 20 minutes of that game. Sheffield United were on top. They were getting in and behind Ross McCrory, who was pressing very, very high on that left-hand side, cutting in his right foot, but it was exposing Bristol City. And I thought Sheffield United were doing really well in terms of Gustavo Hamer, Ryan Brewster playing that ball onto that right-hand side for Sheffield United and exposing them on that flank with the likes of Ty Campbell, who should have scored. But Ty Campbell kept drifting out because Bristol City were exposing that space because they had to score. They had to win. They had to have offensive threat, which is what they had, I thought, in that first half, especially when they hit the bar. But it wasn't to the level of which you needed to beat a Sheffield United side. You need to really pose a threat consistently. And I felt maybe the passing sequences weren't accurate enough. They weren't flowy. They weren't what we've seen of Bristol City when they've been at the pomp a little bit. But that's because they were up against the team of which have just won 2 on the bounce. And it is Sheffield United with the likes of O'Hare, Hamer, Ty Campbell, Kiefer Moore. You know, they've got a lot of quality. Vinny Souza in that team. So Sheffield United, I thought, were the better footballing team. I thought they were able to cut through Bristol City at points in that first 20 minutes quite easily on that side. It was clearly a ploy, clearly a target for those Bristol City fullbacks pushing high. But to be fair to Bristol City, a mass amount of injuries again. And can you really pose a constant offensive threat with those on the field? You were looking at Jason Knight, who I thought was quite quiet in the game. Bird, I thought, was a little bit quiet in the game. And Naki Wells was, I mean, he was completely anonymous, wasn't he? So not great for Bristol City. Going into that second leg, can they overturn those 3 goals? I just don't see it. I thought Sheffield United, it was probably their best performance in recent times. And that's just not because of the goals. I think a lot of the game was really nice by Sheffield United, exposing some of the flaws, getting in and behind those centre-backs. I thought Kiefer Moore did really well in splitting the 2 centre-backs, in particular Viner and Dickey, and that's obviously where he got his goal. But there was a lot of positives from Sheffield United. A 3-goal lead in the first leg of the playoffs is unheard of, really. Normally, it's in the balance going into the second part of the playoffs, and it is a shame. It's a shame because as a neutral, you want to see real competition over 2 legs, but it feels like the tie is dead, is buried, and the Blades are at Wembley. So well done to Sheffield United. We will be doing a watch-along at the start of next week if you want to get involved. I know there was Matthew and a few others in the watch-along the other day, and we will be doing that early next week, so come along for that one. But yeah, it's a real shame that Bristol City are out of this, and as a neutral, we can't look at this as a bit of competition, but it is what it is. Well done to Sheffield United, and can Bristol City provide a miracle? Let us know in the comment section below. Now, for the more exciting game for me, the more competitive game, the one that I was looking forward to a little bit more, it's Coventry, it's Sunderland, it's at the CBS. And Sunderland haven't won there since the 70s, I believe, or just beaten Coventry since the 70s. It's an outstandingly ridiculous record of which needed to be put to bed at some point. So records are there to be broken. And by God, were they smashed up last night for the Black Cats. I thought Sunderland were really impressive. And let's start with Sunderland because I think defensively there's been problems. They've been conceding goals against the likes of even Swansea and QPR. Teams who've got nothing to play for at home. And that's where there's a little bit of positivity here for Coventry. It's half-time in the tie. It's only 2-1. They can brush themselves off and go again at a stadium of light, which hasn't been resolute. It's not been resilient for the past 2 months, really, since Labrise has started sort of, you know, moving around certain parts since obviously the playoffs were confirmed, which I think has seen some of the performances just tail off a little bit. But I thought they were really good yesterday. Let me tell you why. I thought in that 4-4-2 formation, I've always said it when it comes to Sunderland, they look a lot more resolute. They look a lot more defensively astute, and with the 2 lads on the counter-attack in Isidore and Meander, especially Meander's pace, which in the first half we saw a lovely counter-attack where he beat about 4 men. and had a strike on goal. By the way, guys, if Sunderland keep hold of him, he's going to be the top scorer in the Championship next season if Sunderland stay down. I think Mienda has got all the attributes to be a real top player at this level and maybe even transition into the Premier League, the Spaniard. But he looked really good on the night, a constant threat, a little bit more of a threat than Isidore, but Isidore got his goal. What's Bobby Thomas doing, by the way, from a Coventry standpoint? Why is he not going and closing Isidore down? He lets him have a strike on goal. Maybe he thinks Ben Wilson's covering that angle, but he didn't. Thomas should be going out there and trying to close Isidore down on his goal. But I thought overall as a structure, a framework, Sunderland looked really good. Rodoni was struggling to build his patterns and sequences and just overall threat in that first half. He grew into the game in that second half when there's a little bit more space. But I thought Sunderland, aside from being a little bit too deep in that last sort of 5 minutes, which I thought they were, I thought they held that mid-block really nicely and were able to transition on that counter-attack. It was the best Sunderland performance I've seen in a long time. And what I will say, from their standpoint, is I think they will be Sheffield United's worst nightmare because I think it's 50-50. I really do. I think Sunderland at the Pomp and Sheffield United at the Pomp, we've seen in the two games when they've played each other, it's a very, very interesting contest. Sunderland have beaten Sheffield United in a 4-4-2, which is quite interesting, and Sheffield United have beaten Sunderland, but the games were very, very tight. Something to bear in mind as well, Rigg didn't start, Tom Watson didn't start as well, but let's move on to Coventry. Coventry in a 4-2-3-1 formation. Ben Sheff coming into the 4 towards the back end of the season has been a real positive for them, I think. I think it's been a real good inclusion. I think with Coventry, they just weren't able to build the fluidity and the dynamism through that central space, but out wide as well. They weren't really a threat. The overlaps only really became a thing when Van Ewick put the ball in for Rodoni's header, but I didn't think that was enough. I thought with the likes of Enzo Lefebvre on there, who I don't think is defensively great, I think they should have exposed Sunderland on that left-hand side or Coventry's right-hand side a little bit more. To be honest, De Silva was able to do it a little bit more frequently on that left-hand side. But Rodoni got into the game towards the second half, and that's where Coventry started to tick a little bit more. It was a shame from Coventry's standpoint as well that Hadji Wright wasn't included in the game a little bit more. I thought Joe Bellingham was outstanding on the night for Sunderland, and he made an absolutely crucial tackle when Hadji Wright span on the ball and was about to put it in the bottom corner when Sunderland were 2-1 up. Bellingham made a tackle, key moment in the game there. But you need Hadji Wright included a little bit more. I was surprised Sims didn't start and maybe Wright on that left-hand side of a front four, and just those two combining as a front two at points from that physical standpoint, because we know Coventry love those long throws from the left and right flank. But I thought overall it was a little bit disappointing from Coventry. And I think if you are a Coventry fan, you probably are a bit disappointed in maybe the lack of fluidity, the lack of chances, really, when you look at it. Not to say Sunderland were all far away, chance, and the XG will probably measure that. But what I will say about Sunderland is it felt like they followed their game plan. Coventry's game plan was to win the game. It felt like, obviously, at home at the CBS, but it felt like Sunderland were able to deal with them quite easily, to be honest with you, from a defensive capacity. So they'll be looking to improve. There is a lack of pressure on Coventry now at the Stadium of Light. They'll be thinking, right, all the pressure is on Sunderland to go and win the game in front of their crowd to see out that 2-1 victory. Coventry are very dangerous away from home, especially at the Stadium of Light, especially at the Stadium of Light. So their form has been improving towards the back end of the season. They'll see this as a massive opportunity to get an early goal, get the Sunderland fans maybe on their back a little bit, the players' backs, and that is a stadium of which can turn. Frank Lampard has done it before at a big stadium in Leeds United, where it's been a deficit at Pride Park when Leeds beat them there. He's worked that before. He's worked the crowd. He's worked the tactics nicely. So there is still mass opportunity for Coventry to go there and to win. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, everybody. Are you happy as a Sunderland fan? Are you buzzing? Coventry, do you think it's a half time? And do you think you'll go to the Stadium of Light win? We go to Bristol City. Bristol City, what are your thoughts? And Sheffield United fans, you must be on cloud nine. Guys, we're going to be back with the watch songs very soon. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and we'll see you in a bit.